Greetings, friends and family, and welcome to my channel. A special welcome to those who are new to this channel. Please consider to subscribe and share this video with friends and family. Today I want to talk about something that is, that is found in the book of Mark, and perhaps I should go ahead and ask a question. Did Jesus make a mistake, or was he misquoted by the writer of the book of Mark? If you read Mark chapter 2, verse 23 to 26, the apostles of Jesus are accused by the Pharisees. In fact, they are talking to Jesus and they're asking Jesus, why are your apostles doing something unlawful on the Sabbath day? So what did the apostles of Jesus do? The apostles of Jesus were hungry, so they were plucking heads of grain in the grain fields. And that was considered working, and working was considered unlawful on the Sabbath day. And so Jesus reminds them, he says to them, have you not read, and I'm going to paraphrase, I'll give you a verse. This story is found in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 21, verse 1 to 9. Jesus says to them, have you not read in the scriptures that David went to the house of God and he found the priest, the high priest, and his name was Abiathar. And he asked for bread, and Abiathar told him that the only bread that they had was the holy bread. And the holy bread was kept in the temple, and it was only eaten by priests. So Abiathar tells Jesus that unless you and your men have kept yourself holy, you have not slept with women, and so on. So David assures Abiathar that they have been on the road for 3 days. But this entire chapter or story is found in 1 Samuel 21, verse 1 to 9. The issue here that I'm raising is that Jesus misquotes, or it's either Jesus is misquoting this story, or the writer of the book of Mark is wrong, has misquoted, has made a mistake. Because the high priest that Jesus is referring to, Jesus says, Abiathar spoke to King David, but it wasn't Abiathar. It was Ahimelech who was the priest at that time. It was Ahimelech that David spoke to. Abiathar was his son. And he did not have a conversation with David. So, read it in Mark 2, chapter 23 to 26. Compare it with 1 Samuel 21, verse 1 to 9. Which is which? Which is which? Or who made a mistake? If I'm a Christian, I would want to believe that someone made a mistake. Because Christianity believes that Jesus is God, Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus is the high priest. So if Jesus is God, he can't make a mistake. He can't make a mistake. But he's quoted there as having said, David had a conversation with Abiathar, and that is wrong. David did not have a conversation with Abiathar. He had a conversation with Ahimelech. Now, It's not only the mistake here that I want to point to. It is the fact that the New Testament is, or we are told rather, that the New Testament is the Word of God. If you take what I'm saying together with the contradictions that I have mentioned in the other episodes, the mistakes that are found so far, how is it a word of God if it is subject to interpretation? I think that it is Paul, in one of the letters he writes to Timothy, he says, the word of God should not be subject to human interpretation. If we apply our wisdom to the word of God and interpret it, whether you can claim that you prayed for revelation, that interpretation will give rise to what anyone can claim that they prayed and God revealed to them this message or that message. And I want to contend that it is the reason, or one of the reasons, why there are so many churches today. Because people had revelations, and in those revelations it was revealed to them that they should plant a church. And by doing that, they have started their own churches with their own doctrines, and some of them deviated from the Word of God or contradicted the Word of God. And some of them do things that resembles witchcraft. But because they said they had a revelation, people are afraid to say, but your revelation is in contrast with the Word of God. And this is what we find in the New Testament. Often, a passage will be taken from the Old Testament, and we will be told that it is a fulfillment of a prophecy. When you go to that chapter in the Old Testament, you find that the context is completely wrong. The context is about something else, which had nothing to do with the coming Messiah or Jesus. If we take things for granted, the hell, the condemnation that we are afraid of is actually where we are driving ourselves to. Because we go about listening to people telling us when the mistakes are glaring. They are staring at us, but we bypass them because we are afraid to question what is wrong. We need to constantly ask ourselves these questions. Is this truly the Word of God? How is it distinct from what is written elsewhere? Here is a mistake. And there are several other contradictions that I have pointed out. I have had interactions with a lot of people. Some have responded. And what it boils down to is a personal interpretation. People will then they will say, maybe this has happened, maybe that has happened. That's personal interpretation, which is dangerous, because you will say, maybe this could have been the reason why ABC has happened. Someone else will give another interpretation. You see where the danger is. If God gives us a prophecy or a word, it is not subject to interpretation. God has given commandments. A commandment, if you've been in the army, you will know. Some of us have been in the army. You don't question a commandment. A commandment must be obeyed, period. If you have complaints, you'll complain later. But when a commandment is issued or given, you obey. So there are commandments in the Bible. There are 613, not 630. There are 613. 10 of them look generic to all humankind, but all of them actually were given to the children of Israel. But I've deviated now. We're not talking about that. The issue here today is this chapter. Mark 2, Mark 2, verse 23 to 26. The corresponding verse or the corresponding chapter is in 1 Samuel 21, 1 to 9. Who made a mistake? Is it Jesus or is it the writer? Was he misquoted? Was he misrepresented? Or is it what he said? I will leave it up to you. You make up your mind. We now have to engage in these things and not read them as if we are reading a novel. We must engage with these things because they mean life and death. As many people have been reading this chapter, they have been saying Jesus said David had a conversation with Abiathar. But in fact, it's a mistake. It was Ahimelech. But when we teach and we teach wrong things to people, people learn wrong things. So if it was the mistake of the writer, those who preach about this verse should not now say, oh no, the word of God cannot be interpreted. I'm not interpreting it. I'm reading the corresponding verse, which shows that here in the New Testament it is misquoted. But people should not now say, because it is written this way, we must take it as it is. This is how we get into trouble. We don't take it as it is. Now, there's an original manuscript, and there's something that is copied from it. So there's a mistake in the copy. And we need, as we have conversations, to correct it and not go about say to people, take it as it is. It might have, some spiritual meaning. No, it is wrong. It is quoted incorrectly. It has no other spiritual meaning. It is quoted incorrectly, and we should teach what is correct. Thank you for your attention. Please consider to subscribe so as to be notified of more content as it is uploaded. Until next time, goodbye.